again. Put it to you all the way.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters Friday night, which means it's 3 Amigos night with me, Neil and Steve. How are you doing, lads?
All well and
all
good.
Right.
All good, all good. Plenty to talk about, as always, as we look back over the last 7 days at Newcastle United and where to start, really. There's plenty we could start with. Let's start, I guess, with last night's game against Liverpool. I mean, I went down. We were, talking about different results. I went online outside the ground last night and predicted Newcastle would lose 3-1. I was right, and I think that was a fair reflection on the game. A game, however, which was tarnished once again by another bad refereeing performance. This is something we seem to be talking about on this platform week after week after week since the takeover went through. But it's an old favourite, Neil, this time. Mike Dean, and the song echoing round Anfield was, "It's all about you." Mike Dean, "It's all about you." And it bloody is.
Because it always is. It always is, but I tell you what, it's really difficult not to feel totally and utterly stitched up. If we'd had any one of those decisions and things that went against with in a game would be upsetting, would still be talking about it. To have 4 or 5 in a single game from the same referee, for him to then compound it by lying, because let's get it out in the open, he is lying. I saw Hayden holding his back. You show me a single picture from any angle where Hayden is holding his back. And then for Dermot Gallagher to come up and back him up on television, and he actually came out and said, well, he didn't see it. Well, which one's the truth? Did he see him holding his back, or did he just not see it? Both of those statements are incorrect. And somebody is lying. And we need to call this out. Look, I've even seen people saying Hayden was feigning an injury. Okay, let's dump the cells on your neck for 30 seconds, and let's see how good you feel afterwards. Because that's effectively it. People talk about a head injury. It doesn't have to be a clash of heads. It doesn't have to have clarity going all over the pitch. And I'll tell you something else. This game is compounded for me. The utter and sheer disregard to head injuries and concussion protocols that our beloved game has compared to others. Because I'll call our manager out for this. If Hayden was dizzy and feeling all over the place for 4 to 5 minutes after that incident, he should be pulled off the pitch and put through a concussion protocol. Not that I think the football's concussion protocol is any good at all, because I know it's not shit. I've seen it. And I've had FIFA try and say in sports medicine conferences how great it is, and it's not. And I'm telling you now, if he was really dizzy for 4 or 5 minutes post that incident, if you sat him with an American football concussion protocol, he wouldn't pass it. It's as simple as that. He wouldn't. But it also compounds this sort of laissez-faire attitude to certain injuries that football has. Because if Mike Dean says, irrespective of whether he's thought he believed that he saw Hayden holding his back, if you've got somebody crumpled in the middle of the pitch, normally anywhere else, and I would venture if that was in Liverpool's penalty area last night, the game would have been stopped. Mike Dean cannot make a head injury assessment on the spot like that, because the doctor bloody can't either. And Mike Dean's proved last night how just absolutely atrocious in the way with the fairies he is. That little hop and skip and jump, and how it certainly cannot help any goalkeeper to have a referee dancing across the bloody line of vision like a ballet dancer at the last minute. I still don't think Dubravka would have stopped the shot. It was a cracking shot. But it's things like you've got to take things in context. Even if Hayden was feigning a head injury, I can guarantee if that was the Liverpool centre midfielder or centre back in the Liverpool box, the game would have been stopped. It's as simple as that. And so we've got not just one, but we've got 5 or 6 different incidents. The tackle on Fraser. You go back and look at the tackle that Shea got booked for. It's almost identical. It's almost identical. And where was VAR in the middle of all this? This is supposed to be the thing. And yet, I watched the game last night at Rob's, who we know is a Chelsea fan. There was a couple of other lads there supporting different teams, and they couldn't wrap their heads around what they were watching unfold in front of them. They were like, "Well, hang on a minute, there's stuff going on here, you know." And if you take the letter of the law, that tackle by Trent Alexander-Arnold, which personally I don't think these things are fouls. I think that old school, good old fashioned raking tackles. But if you look at it in slow motion, he gets the man before the ball and he goes through the man from behind. That, in any definition of the modern game and the rules they're supposed to be consistently applying, is a foul and therefore should be a penalty. And it's a carbon copy of the tackle that Shea got booked for. And it's all these things that today, normally after a game like that, I've calmed down by the next night. I've actually got more angry. I've been winding myself up all bloody day about certain things. Took the bend to the pictures. Halfway through the pictures, I was sitting in the back of my head getting wound up about McD. You know, it's flipping ridiculous. But it's really difficult. I can understand why some fans feel that there's something conspiratorial. And if the old adage is true that these things even out over a season, by God, 2022 is going to be fantastic. We're going to get every single decision because we're getting out at the minute, absolutely out. And last night was laughable almost. If it wasn't so gut-wrenchingly poor, it would be laughable. But I cannot laugh about it because that just. And Mike Dean, yeah, we all know he's a Tranmere fan. But shall we talk about his two sons who are both Liverpool season ticket holders? What's he doing refereeing that game? These things need to stop as well. We'll get that other prat from who claims he's an Altrincham fan refereeing games against both Manchester clubs. Rubbish. Yeah. Rubbish. If we got somebody from Hexham and he said, "Oh no, I'm a Carlisle fan," and yet his two sons were Newcastle season ticket holders, I'm telling you now, they'd be hell on if he ever refereed it.
You mentioned Gallagher there, Mitch. You mentioned Gallagher. I don't know whether you've seen it. I just want to read this out to you guys. Dermot says, "It's a really tough call. You look at it over and over and over again. Different people have different opinions. The referee can't be certain it's a penalty. Therefore, he gives the benefit of the doubt to the defender, as he has to in law. He will have discussed it with VAR because that is how tight it is. They cannot overturn it as there hasn't been a clear and obvious error." Have you ever heard anything so ridiculous as that?
Rubbish.
There hasn't been a clear and obvious error.
I mean, tell you what we clearly need now is those microphone conversations to be made public and to be recorded and be broadcast.
Exactly.
Let's have them out in the open. Let's have them out in the open. Let's hear your discussions. Let's hear what your thinking is. Now, if we hear what the thinking is, and sometimes you might see a decision, get really railed up about it, and hear a referee go, "Oh, well, I saw X, Y, Z, but I didn't see this, and I'm not really sure."
Yeah.
It might soften the blow a little bit. But
you're right. It might.
Until something like that happens, it makes VAR irrelevant. VAR's an absolute shambles how we apply it in the UK.
Yeah. He then goes on to say they can't re-referee the game. He's talking about VAR here. So VAR cannot re-referee the game. So they have to go with the original decision. So the original decision was no penalty because the referee made a sign to say no penalty on the pitch that everybody could see. And he spoke to VAR and he said, "I'm not giving that as a penalty." That's what Gallagher's basically saying. Whether Gallagher's heard it or not, I don't know. Whether Gallagher gets something in his ear in his house that tells him what the PGMOL, or whether he gets a copy of recording. But according to this, Gallagher knows what's being said. And then he goes, on the evidence he's got, he can't give a penalty. He says he can't then go to the monitor. And I'm thinking, what? He can't go to the monitor because his referee's already made a decision. That's like oddball to say the least, isn't it? I mean, where does that come into play? I mean, I've never heard of, it's as though they're making these rules up as they go along now, isn't it? You know? This comes
what they're doing is they're all
down a discussion that you and I have had for months and months, if not years, about PGMOL, the professional body that look after the referees in this country, and who runs it and how he runs it. And I remember being at a Premier League meeting where They tried to tell us what the offside rule was going to be for a particular season, and we were going, what? And they actually had the audacity to use examples. This is going back probably 4 or 5 years, examples of penalty decisions going against Newcastle to prove to other fans sitting around the table that the referee got it right on the offside decisions and the fouls committed by the likes of Stephen Taylor. That tells you how long ago it was. But they were using evidence that was games with involving Newcastle United to justify some of the poor decisions that they'd made. And that was pre-season. That was at the start of the season when they were making up new, the new interpretation of the rules. It's a farce, man. It's an absolute farce. And whether it's corrupt or not, we can't say, because we're not in a position to call it corrupt, because we have to be very, very careful what you would want to utter. But on the evidence of what we're seeing, there's got to be questions asked in the House, as they would say, hasn't there, regarding how these officials are officiating games, and certainly this season, how games involving Newcastle United are being officiated. How long does it take to make a penalty decision? When we sit for 2 and 3 minutes at St James's Park waiting for a penalty decision to be made by a referee that in the game against Norwich is the last example.
Yeah.
And Howie, it was clearly and blatantly a penalty. What we're waiting for now? And I mean, the clock's ticking and it's ticking and it's ticking. You're thinking, what's going on? I mean, it was though they were, in American football terms, trying to run down the clock in the hope that we'll get half time and then they don't have to make a decision again. That's how crazy things have become, man.
Yeah, it is absolutely bonkers. Let's just hope Mike Dean doesn't do another game for us this season.
Steve, what was the feeling like on the terraces at the time last night when that decision was made?
We made it clear, singing those songs, you know what I mean? It's all about you. I mean, it got an error not once, not twice, but 3 times, because there was more controversial decisions, throughout the game. He even managed to get in the way, as Mitch rightly pointed out, of that, Alexander-Arnold shot, which ultimately would have gone in, I think, anyway. Dubravka didn't have a chance to save it. But even that, when you watch the replay, he runs in front, he completely unsights people. And I mean, he's just useless. He shouldn't be anywhere near the...
You've also got to remember, Steve, he ran in front of Shelby, who was going to be challenging and presenting himself to Alexander-Arnold as he was taking a shot. So he runs it. And it's only that split-second difference it makes between getting a block in or pausing or that sort of split-second mindset that is there. That disrupts the player. And he literally disrupted the player because of his poor positioning. And I've never, ever seen a referee, when he's in that position, go that direction in the direction he went.
Except him. I'm sure he's done it once before, either earlier this season or tail end of last. I was looking for it before, earlier today, and I kind of find it, but I'm convinced I've had this conversation about Mike Dean in recent months.
That's another question. In the midfield area, that always be the ball. Watching in front of the ball.
Steve, we're gonna have to pause you there, mate, because your reception's gone a little bit. So we'll let you.
Robbie the robot.
We'll let him get sorted out. Is he back? Yeah, it's your internet, Steve. You're frozen a bit there, mate. Okay, he's going to go and sort things out. Let's take this one from Dave Haybury, Mitch, while Steve's sorting his internet out. Hi, guys. Given our relegation rivals are getting time off and games in hand, etc., do you think the EPL should take a break, if not for fairness? And I mean, this has been something that's been discussed at all the press conferences today between all the managers, including Eddie Howe. And it doesn't really make it a level playing field when some teams are going to have potentially 3 or 4 games to fit in towards the back end of the season. And that's whether you're fighting, for a place in Europe at the top end of the table or fighting a relegation battle at the bottom.
That's true, but games in hand bring a very interesting kind of pressure. They're only useful if you actually do something with them. And if it gets to the tail end of the season and you're having to pack 2 extra games in and you're squeezing them in the middle of the week, what does that do to your squad? And if you don't take advantage of one of them, what kind of internal pressure does that bring on yourself? I think the more prudent questions to be asking is, what are the Premier League doing in a time when they're producing more positive COVID tests than ever? What was Guardiola doing going over to Aguero's press conference? What was the point of him being there? He's a Man City manager. He should be concentrating on Man City. And now he's chucked in an inconclusive test, so his press conference gets cancelled. There's a good chance that'll probably turn into positive. Whose decision making is that, and why is he allowed to skip around like a fanny going to some bloody press conference he can have a little cry at, when actually he should be being responsible and showing his squad about responsibility, about what you should and shouldn't be doing in terms of sticking to rules about isolation and not getting positive tests in your squad. It's not just football. It's affecting all sports worldwide. American football have just gone absolutely nuts. They just had their biggest fortnight for positive COVID tests. There's people being put on the COVID lists left, right, and centre. I think Washington are now in a position where they're having to think about how they're going to play a quarterback, because all their quarterbacks are suddenly now on the COVID list. You know, so it's not just the Premier League. It's affecting sport worldwide. I've got to say, it does seem to be sensible to talk about having a fire break, having a 10 to 14 day period whereby fixtures are postponed to allow people to get this under control, because it's obviously many clubs, it's not just one, have failed in their duty of responsibility to isolate correctly and control the spread of COVID throughout the squad. And so if they can't be trusted to do it right, then there is one way of doing it, and that's just to shut the game down for a fortnight. But then what that does to the end of the season again brings interesting questions. But and as frustrating as it might seem, ironically, it's something that could work in our favour. Yeah, you just never know. But it is what it is. We've got to kind of put up with whatever decision those in charge come up with. They don't seem to be coming up with very favourable decisions for us at the moment, by and large. But that all helps the siege mentality for me.
What about you, Steve? The question from Dave on the screen there. What's your thoughts on this? Because a lot of people, including our own manager Eddie Howe, feel this could lead to an unfair playing field.
I think Dave's right. I think, and what I agree with what Mitch is saying. It's looking more and more likely that there's going to be some sort of fire break put in and some sort of stalling of the season. Whether it comes at a time that suits Newcastle United or not, you can see what's going to happen. You can see us being forced to play Man City on Sunday. And then we'll be COVID-free still, and we'll be the only club that's COVID-free. And then Man United will come out of their COVID problem, and because we're still COVID-free, we'll be told, you have to play Man United on the 27th, while everybody else is still off, because they've even brought the game forward tomorrow or on Sunday by 15 minutes for broadcasting. So you can see the broadcasters are desperate to have a game played. That would not surprise me one iota, and that will just add to the conspiracy theory that everything's going against Newcastle United at the moment. But it does seem to be getting out of hand. But when you have irresponsible, and as much as I like him as a manager, and as much as I admire what he can do, he is irresponsible as the likes of Pep Guardiola to just hop on a plane on Wednesday morning and fly over to Spain and then fly back with an entourage of people from Manchester City, and then suddenly find that when he arrives back in, he then fails or doesn't have a negative COVID test. He has what is being described as inconclusive, and it's things like that. You're thinking to yourself, well, I thought there was a football bubble. I thought clubs were living in a bubble. I thought, we're getting told you're being tested day in, day out, etc., etc. But if you're then going to have people who are allowed to fly around the world or fly down to Spain for a what was basically just a nod and a wink to a player who used to play for Manchester City, and happens to be on the books of Guardiola's ex-club Barcelona, and that we all know how Barcelona like to make a song and dance about everything, whether it's a player leaving or a player retiring or a manager that's coming in, etc., because it all adds to the pomp and circumstance, because there's so much goes on around Barcelona anyway. And I just find the whole thing sticks in your throat. especially when fans themselves are being told, you're going to have to do this and you're going to have to do that to get into the games. You've got this form to fill in, you've got that form to fill in, you've got this app that you've got to have details on, etc., etc. But it seems like it goes out the window when managers just want to do whatever they like, because that's what it looks like. Whether it works like that or not, who am I to say? But in the cold heart of it, that's what it looks like to the likes of me. It looks like people are taking the mick, quite frankly.
Yeah, I would agree, mate. I would agree. Next question is a football-related question on the screen, lads. And Mitch, will come to you. Robert says, anyone else notice that our press is 5 to 10 yards off the opposition, but they are onto us, causing havoc? I mean, it's about changing formations and getting used to Eddie Howe. He's only been there a few weeks, and it's going to take time. But what I see are signs of improvement every game, and not just individuals, but across the board. And it will come good, I feel. I'm still confident we've got the capability of getting out of this relegation battle that we are in come the turn of the new year. And if it means, even if there's a little break, which would do us a world of good, it has to be said, I think that would help massively. What's your take on it, Mitch?
Formations and mentality, it takes time to change a culture. And we've got into this. We've had 3 years of being poorly trained and randomly coached, and playing this sort of deep lying, hit on the brake, not on the front foot. Must be very hard to shake yourself out of that. Also, really, are the personnel good enough to play the type of game that Howe wants? And are they fit enough to do it for 90 minutes? They certainly weren't when he first came to the club. I think that's certainly changed now. We do see positive signs. The game yesterday would have been very different, in my opinion, had the game been stopped when Hayden was down in the box. It's as simple as that. They get back to 1-1 and it's a different game. If we could have frustrated them that bit longer and kept them out till half time, that would have been a different game. Not saying we would have won it. We might have nicked the draw, which we would be cock a hoop with. It's yes, you see signs of encouragement, but also there's things to question still. Whether that's all going to be addressed in January, possibly. I think there's some tough decisions to make about certain players, and I think what he injects and who he injects into the side in January is now very, very critical if this is the style he wants to stick with and play with.
Steve, what about you? I mean, have you seen signs of life? You've been lucky enough to see them at home this season, or unlucky enough, depending on your frame of mind. But I mean, joking aside, you've seen the team this season. How do you compare, the team under Bruce to the team under Howe?
Well, the first thing I'd say to Robert is that 5 to 10 yards off the opposition is an improvement on what we had at the start of the season, where it was 15, 20 and 25 yards off the man. What I also noticed yesterday was that I don't think on one occasion during that entire game did we play the ball from Dubravka to one of our centre-backs in the box. That seems to have gone after the mess up that they made on Sunday. That style of play, I noticed that it was very much either playing out to the full-backs or, more importantly, playing it another 15, 20 yards further up the field. And it tended to be Dubravka picking the ball up and throwing it wide or kicking it. In terms of whether we've seen improvement, yes, we have closed down a little bit more. We seem to have a little bit, not much, but a little bit of a better transition between defence and midfield. We haven't got that transition between midfield and attack yet with the forwards. Whether that is down to the fact that I think, and this might sound critical or overcritical or overhyped, but are opposition managers and opposition defenders starting to suss out Saint-Maximin? Are they starting to realise that, you know, if you just let him go with a ball, he'll just go wherever he wants to go, and you've just got to track him, and you just, you know, you can send him into blind alleys if you want, because eventually he'll trip over it or he'll knock it, and his final ball is not very good. You notice he's not getting the breaks like he did last season. For example, the goal against Burnley, where he's running at central defenders face on, and he's able to take the ball on, drop a shoulder 2 or 3 times, beat the man and put the ball, maybe do some little jinx on the edge of the box with just the goalkeeper and a shot. He's not getting those opportunities now. What he's getting is he's getting it with either he's back to the goal or he's turning back in when he gets the ball, and he's then taking it down blind alleys. And he's also not getting the opportunity to lay the ball off to anyone who's coming up and supporting him, whether that's because they are not in the position to support him or whether he's not capable of looking up and seeing how he supports that particular player, or lays the ball off to someone who's in a better position. I thought centrally in midfield, I thought we looked composed and we'll look as though we had a shape with the 3. I was impressed with Fraser. Not that there's anything really to compare, because we haven't seen Fraser that much in the last sort of 18 months anyway, since he's been at the club, because he hasn't really had either the run of the game due to injuries or opportunities to actually play in a position that he's probably suited to. A bit like Mitch, he's still finding his feet, isn't he?
Aye.
But those type of things, we're not getting the best out of Wilson either, I must admit. You know, whether Wilson, you can see his head dropping at times, because time and time again he's making the run, and the ball's not being placed to him, or he's totally isolated when it comes and there's 2 or 3 people around him. So there's a lot of work that's going to have to be done, and whether or not it's going to be this squad who's doing the work, or whether some of them it's just going to run out of time and they're going to be replaced in January and they're going to lose their place in the squad. Who knows? But certainly 5 to 10 yards is a vast improvement on what we saw at the start of the season, Steve.
Oh, 100%, mate. There's no doubt about it at all. Thanks. Keep your questions coming in. We do struggle to get to them, but I thought we'll get a few up early doors. Got a few other things to talk about tonight, as always, and a few of your regular slots. Going to start with Tweet of the Week this week. Some great tweets, and some of them which will notably cause a bit of debate as well, I think, amongst the chat, but some of them quite humorous and not all about football. As I always say, if you've got a tweet of the week, please give me, Neil, or Steve a shout. Let us know what you're thinking, and we will try and get as many on as we can. This was rather insulting towards me and Holly. After our singing in the car, I thought, from Steve Corbett. We were singing Big River by Jimmy Nail. We stuck it on YouTube as one of these short videos that you can do. And he sent us a picture of a load of cats outside his house after playing the clip, Steve.
I'm not getting embroidered in that one, Steve.
Thanks,
I made my
Steve.
comment mainly known at the time.
Moxie Mag just pointing out on Twitter that we're going to need a bigger boat, as all of the games at St James's Park are getting sold out week by week. So quite a good play on there. This one really dominated Twitter this week after the Leicester game. Terence Ross, it was good to see him down Leicester. He said Tom Daly would be proud of that, which was rather cutely followed up by this photograph. Doctored, of course, from Andy McClay, saying another Leicester City Football Club successful penalty training session completed by Madders. And there is Maddison in the pool and Tom Daly on a very well doctored photograph. Thanks. As you know, it's not always football related. This one did make me giggle. One of my friends on Instagram had posted this. I am here for you. Thanks. I'm going through a tough time, so it means a lot. And sorry, I've lost all my contacts. Who is this? This is your Uber driver. I'm here to pick you up. Classic. I love that. I love that kind of humour. This one was one of two from Doug of the Corner. And Doug, you need to give him a follow. Doug of the Corner. He's also the dad of one of the lads from the K's, the group. Yeah. Football then. Try and kick the ball into the goal. Football now. Try and kick the ball against someone's arm near the goal to get a free shot at goal.
He's right. Absolutely.
He is right. And then he followed this one up. The Chronicle, as you know, always put up photographs, as do Newcastle United after away games. If you're lucky enough to be in the camera lens's view, you sometimes end up on the web. And Doug went, lovely pics, NUFC. Any chance of deleting the one on the right? As I told the wife I was going Christmas shopping for a present. Of course, Doug.
There he is.
Clearly shown. This one's a good one, Steve, from Elliot Slesser, the snooker player.
A bloke just asked me if I had any idea where he could get a new wig from. I said, not off the top of my head. And you just look in the top corner of his photograph.
Good stuff, Elliot. We'll have to get him back on the show soon. Big Newcastle fan. Jim White having a pop at my mate Simon Jordan. Might dip into this on my flight back from Dubai shortly. Need something to get me drowsy. And of course, it's a copy of Simon Jordan's book, Be Careful What You Wish For. I wonder whether he did indeed read that and drop off. Jamie Boyle put this. Team Pookie for Norwich City. And when he was on Celtic on the right-hand side. Those of you who watch Squid Game will appreciate who that guy is. But I thought that was quite amusing. This one from Stephen Clough, Steve.
Yes, because Stephen is saying, if only we had some sort of additional video intervention to double check these sort of things, we could even allow the referee to review it, if necessary, on the pitch side monitor. I can't believe that this sort of thing doesn't exist already. And you know what? Anyone who had watched the Leicester game would have thought exactly the same, wouldn't they? And last night.
I think that's what he was referring to. That was brilliant. Yeah. This one was from Fesshole. After 28 years, cheating ex left for a younger woman. That Christmas, the kids wanted him at the house. When cooking, I put on a latex glove, stuck one finger up each of the dog's bums and wiped them across his plate and let it dry on. Watching him mop up the gravy was a pure pleasure. I do like visiting that page every now and then, and I think that it does give you some kind of satisfaction, I think, from some of these people's true revenge stories, I think. But that popped up on my timeline. I thought that was a must.
True confessions, I think it's called, Steve, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Ross Gregory having a little bob dig at the fact that the week before we beat Burnley and put a team photo on, celebrating. This was after the Leicester game. I'm guessing there's no dressing room squad photo today.
You think you're right, Ross? Definitely.
He was definitely right. Graham, I love this. A flashback. Who remembers this? The old Bill checking your boots for steel toe caps. They also made you take out your laces so you couldn't boot anyone. Always had a spare pair hidden away. That's brilliant.
He'll be a managing director now, that lad, won't he?
Just a little bit of a little bit of yesteryear. It doesn't do us any harm, does it? This one, again, Joe Heenan. During lockdown, I wrote a script and I sent it to various people. I've just received this email from someone at Netflix. Never give up on your dreams. Dear Mr. Heenan, thank you for the script. It's one of the best we've ever read. The writing's superb. It's tense, funny, and non-stop action. The only problem is, it's a script to Die Hard. You've literally sent the script to Die Hard and changed the title to Mr. No Shoes and the Shooty Shooty Bang Bang Christmas. Never contact us again.
That's brilliant.
That was brilliant. The best tweet of the week this week was, for me, was this one. And you might be thinking, well, Steve, that's just the back of the programme. Why are you showing us a back of the programme with Saunders Barry, Rankin Thomas, Francis Dane, Cole Dixon Gavin, Andrew Scott, Rodriguez Kennedy, Ike Peter, Smith Gary, Henderson Brett, Ikechukwu Aguma, and Taylor Robbie? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because there's been a complaint going to the league. Here's the team sheet for tonight's game, and we are absolutely furious because Sydenham have fielded their players to spell out SRFC or shit. We know this for a fact because Dane Francis, a striker, is wearing number 3. I hope the league committee throw the book at them for this. Absolutely brilliant. And I do remember when Sunderland did that to Newcastle. So it is quite commonplace, that kind of thing. But fantastic. Keep them coming. Love them. Don't have to be football related. Get your tweets in over the next 7 days, and we will have them on the next 3 Amigos. Thank you. Now, Steve, I want to start with you on this one because last night at Anfield, we were privy to the new kind of terracing at football grounds. Rail seating. Get that in the Gallagher, says NUFC chance when he looked at our photograph that we put on last night. I've got to be honest, I loved it. And we had seen this, Steve, as part of a display by the FSA, hadn't we? You kindly sorted this out. Got it up to 9 bar a few years ago where we used to do the pre-match on Stowell Street. And you actually brought it to us. That's the first time that I've been, because obviously I'm back on the road with Newcastle now with the kids being older. First time I've been to a ground with that. It was brilliant. Really liked it. Plenty of space and very safe. But that's got to be the way forward for football stadia, hasn't it? I mean, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, the question at Newcastle obviously is where it's put, and I know that there's a suggestion that it should be the Gallagher end, and I can understand why someone would suggest the Gallagher end. If you're gonna have standing, then you've got to make it safe. I think that was the whole nub of everything that's been said about safe standing over the last sort of 10, 15, 20 years. And you're right, Steve. We brought up a nice little display by John, who was one of the main. I was going to call him an agitator, but I suppose, yes, he is an agitator because he agitated the football authorities for God knows how many years now to bring in safe standing, because there was a way of standing at a football match in safety behind the barrier. The one that we saw was an opportunity that was going to allow you to actually double or treble your attendance, because that particular setup was going to be, there was a seat for European games, but where you were standing behind these particular barriers, you could actually have 2 people in that location, or even 3 people. That's the sort of setup that was well, one of the setups that John was proposing at the time. Obviously, the authorities, and I've spoken it many times with the football club. It's been mentioned at fans forums over the years. Steve Story, who was the head of safety and security at the ground, he went up, and I know that him and his team have seen it in operation when it was put in at Celtic a couple of seasons ago, just to see how it looked and how it could be policed and what it meant. But the system that you saw last night, Steve, I believe, is 1 person, 1 seat, and then that is your location on a European game where it's forced to be sitting. Then the seat is dropped so that it's in place, and then the seat, to give you a little bit more space to stand, is then raised up and it's locked into place so that you don't need to sit down. You can stand in safety. You're not going to trip over anyone. You're not going to trip over the seat next to you that's broken or in a downward position, or there's a particular barrier in the way. And you're right. If people are going to stand at football matches, you've got to provide the safety and security. And this is what safe standing's all about. Great to see that a club like Liverpool trying. I know Manchester United have installed a little section in their ground for safe standing. I know Tottenham, when they reconfigured the new stadium, they included an area where it's safe standing. I believe Chelsea have also gone down that line. As I say, Celtic, I know that there's an area there in the corner that they're particularly vociferous and vocal supporters. The Green Brigade, I think they're called, they occupy. And we know fans are going to stand at games, so they stand in safety, and you put a particular area together. Is there any way? You're saying that's the first time you've seen it, Steve? And
yeah,
other than what we saw at the old Stage Door 9 bar, be interesting, because you know there'll be a few more games this season where you might get the opportunity to witness it. But interestingly, that was in an away area that you're actually, they've actually done it for away fans, and that shows there's a little bit more thought gone into it in Liverpool than would have been perhaps with some other clubs where it's only specifically for a singing section in their particular area of the ground. I don't know. It's bad enough being in level 7, isn't it, without having to stand in level 7, and then you've got at least the safety of a barrier in front of you would probably make people feel a little more comfortable for the away sections, because they all stand anyway at St James's Park. But no, I mean, it's the way that it's going. it's sensible. It's just a case of whether clubs have the wherewithal within them within the boardroom to actually make it possible. But I think this is when dialogue with fans becomes very, very important to make sure that it's done in the right place, in the right part of the ground, and that fans who don't want to stand, who want to sit, are given the opportunity to have their say as well. Because there will be fans, for example, if you stuck it in a particular area of the Gallowgate, that would be required or would be seeking to move. I've come across situations just in the recent past where even one or two fans are being asked to move from a section of the ground into another section, and the club can't accommodate them. So God knows what would happen if there was suddenly what would it be, another Save Our Seats campaign that would be started because people who have been sitting in that particular area of the ground want to remain seating? Is it become a young v old situation? I don't know. But these are all the things that would crop up. We know it'll crop up, but this is where dialogue with fans who understand the situation and can come up with some sensible, coherent argument for and against, where and not where, etc., through dialogue with main bodies of fans who are going to be impacted. So it's going to be interesting to see whether Newcastle do move. I suspect that anything at Newcastle could be around or wrapped around any redevelopment of the particular, let's say the Gallowgate end, for example, because at the moment we believe that's the only place that could be redeveloped in the very short term. But who knows? Things move quickly in football, don't they? When they want to. Sometimes it takes 30 years.
Very true, mate. Very true. Mitch, what's your take on this? I mean, obviously, the introduction of All-Seater Stadium came off the back of a horrendous loss of life at Hillsborough. The removal of the fences, the installation of new grounds, and the Taylor report forced all that upon football. There had to be a period of grace, and I think it's been a much needed one. And I think football's reinvented itself. It's made it more of a family friendly game. We still have issues with homophobia and racism, which still needs to be driven out of football stadiums, but it's not as rife as it was back in the 80s. Is this a step in the right direction, do you think, by clubs like Liverpool to put this and to trial it on away ends? Because again, like I certainly thought it worked last night, and it didn't affect the atmosphere. It was actually quite good.
It's a discussion that absolutely needs to be had. To say there's absolutely no way to have safe standing in football grounds, particularly in modern grounds. The design's very different. The way you filter into the ground and the way you filter into areas is being changed massively. So you don't get these pressure points and surges, which all contributed to what happened with Hillsborough. The design of the grounds are very, very different. Like Steve rightly says, if I remember right, there's two different types of the wheel system. There's the 1-to-1 model, which I think is what you were in, and then I think it's the 2.5-to-1 model, which is sort of it's basically for every 2 seats you can get 5 standing in, and I think that's what they use in Dortmund, if I remember rightly. And certainly it brings a different type of atmosphere into a ground. Very thoughtful for away fans, because to be honest with you, going from my time going to away games regularly, I can't remember sitting in a seat for a long period of time in the away end. Ever. And so I think it's a debate and a discussion he's had. You're right. There's things in the grounds that still happen that need to be stamped on. But it's a very different time and a very different world. And we should be bringing it all to task and sorting it all out and having an adult discussion as football fans, which we're not allowed. We're not allowed to have an adult discussion as a football fan. You're treated like an idiot in general. And still that happens now. How can I go to say Newcastle Falcons one week and stand on the terrace with a pint in each hand and enjoy the game, and then go to St James's Park where I've got to sit my bum on a seat and I'm not allowed to drink within viewing of the sight of the pitch? It's a very they're very different sports with very different fan bases, but surely these days we're going to be allowed to be brought into discussions as an adult, and safe standing is very much one of them. Because I think it would contribute to atmospheres in stadia. How many stadia now even Liverpool last night, I'm reading people on Twitter saying, apart from, the singing at the start, they were relatively quiet as a crowd, and we outsung them all night. So, I think as a way to help atmospheres and grounds, it's certainly something that would make a difference. And there'd still be a core of people who would want to stand with their mates on the terrace. Whether I would want to or could now, don't know, maybe I've become too gentrified in my football support. But it's certainly something that needs to be had, because there's definitely a thirst for it and definitely a want for it.
Yeah. I think there's an element of protectionism as well, by the way, Mitch, in clubs at the moment. And I'm sure there's an element of protectionism inside Newcastle United at the moment among those who have been part of the hierarchy for the last 14 or 15 years, because they have their own opinions on safe standing. We know that they have their own opinion on safe standing. It's very much along the same opinion that was had by Lee Charnley and the same opinion that was had by Mike Ashley, which was, we're not going to go for it. We're not going to support it. We're not going to defend it, but we're not going to support it either. It wasn't even a sitting on the fence, if I'm quite right, because it was very much, well, we've been to see it, but. And whenever there's a but that comes out in Newcastle United, that but tells me that it actually means, you know what, we're not interested. And that's the way it came over. In all the discussions I had in as part of the fans forum when safe standing was discussed, it was always almost they couldn't trust you. Almost they didn't want to spend the money. The money element got thrown in your face straight away. This would be too costly. We'll look at it. We'll think about it. All of those sort of off-the-cuff remarks that get made. But it came down to trust. And they weren't willing to have adult conversations with fans because they knew that the fans would win the day whenever there was an adult conversation that revolved around what the fans wanted and what the fans, what would make it more comfortable for fans and what would make the experience better for the club, because there was an element of we know best. And I suspect within the corridors of power at St. James's Park, those same people are still there. So those same elements will still exist. Whether those people have the ear of the new owners or the new owners allow different conversations to be had to allow them to shape where we're heading as a football club, that's a different matter. And that's a matter that will come to fruition in the next sort of, maybe 6 to 12 months. Maybe shorter, maybe longer, I don't know. But, the dialogue needs to be taking place. But my concern is that the dialogue between the club and the fans will be taking place with the people who have had that negativity towards various aspects of the fan base for an awful long time. And I don't think those are the people who can be shaken from that. And what I'm getting at is that, for example, if you went to the new owners and said, I think we should have safe standing, you can almost guarantee that somebody within that corridor will go at them and say, by the way, this is a bad idea because of X, Y, and Z. And we've had this conversation, we've had this dialogue over the last 10, 15 years, blah, 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 blah. And then it'll be, oh, okay then. Rather than going to and saying, we want to have the dialogue again. And we want to have a proper dialogue, and we want this investigated, and we want a feasibility study, and we want it done it quick because other clubs are doing it, and we want what's best for our fans and what our fans want. It's never a case when decisions are made at Newcastle United. It's never been a case of making a decision because it was something that the fans wanted. It was always something that Mike Ashley or that the people behind the scenes wanted. And in 9 times out of 10, those were negative decisions that were being made. And I'm looking forward to the time when we start to get some positivity decisions made. But as I say, my worry is that the people up there who are in the ear are maybe not the people who are best suited to helping that dialogue to move forward.
Interesting. We will obviously watch that with interest as things progress. A couple of things. Ryan puts that post up about, why don't we just complain about things or blame things that we can change, like ASM's selfishness. A lot of people critical of him. I want to point your attention to this as well, which was in The Athletic this week. Machine Joe Linton liberated as Brazilian is perfectly suited to house style. We've now got a song to the tune of She's Electric for Joe Linton, which I never thought I'd see the day that Joe Linton would have his own song and that the fans would be reveling in him. But players, I guess, let's talk about those two in particular. Joe Linton's been a revelation under Eddie Howe, and ASM has gone backwards. Mitch, what's your take on both the players?
Well, you know, there's somebody who said I felt there was a player in Joe Linton for a while. Personally vindicated that he's come to fruition. He's put the work in. You could say the same about Warren Barton. There's a time I bet you would never expect to be singing Warren Barton centre part. And you know what the commonality there is they're prepared to put shift in, prepared to work, and they've worked their way out with it, and worked their way out with their initial doubts in the fan base by showing that they actually give a monkeys and put a shift in. And so, yeah, I can see similarities in that. I think it's time to start to ask questions of ESM. I bet he's a terrible poker player. He cannot hide anything because his tell is the funny little limp he gets when he's decided he's had enough. And then initially I thought I was just seeing things and being cynical, but now I'm now beginning to think, yeah, when he's had enough, and the limp happens, and he just wants to come off, and I'm done now. You know, and you think he was carrying a bloody Glock in his pocket, the way he limps around, you know, and I think it's time to ask some questions. Maybe it's time to take him out the firing lane a little bit. Give him some time on the bench and look about how we make him work. I thought yesterday's selection was an interesting one. The way to use the ASM. As Steve said earlier, have people who organise defences worked out that he's quite happy to run into a blind alley and do 2 or 3 little step overs and then think, oh shit, what do I do now? Certainly, like I've mentioned before in here, though, who do you replace him with, and what are you replacing him with? Because if it's say Almiron, I can ask the same of Almiron. His work rate's fantastic, but what end product has he brought to the table? And so there's some very. The next few weeks are gonna see where Howe obviously sits on that again about who he brings in and what happens to these players and how they're used. But it's frustrating because we know ASM has the ability in him to win a game on his own, on his day. And I make no bones about the fact I'd always try and find room for somebody like that in the team. But now, after last night again, there was a couple of times he should have played a ball when he didn't. And you question his decision making and his sort of mental toughness in terms of in the heat of the moment. He reverts to type and wants to do another 3 step overs and go past the man again, when actually just playing the ball in first time would have been a sensible thing to do and potentially could have caused more havoc. And sometimes flair players like this are mercurial and frustrating, but in the situation we're in, I think it's now time to start asking the questions. It's not what we want, it's what we need. And do we need that? I would want that. I'd always want to find room for someone like that in the team. I've said that, I think, on here plenty of times. But right now is what we want, what we need. And I think that's the kind of questions we need to be asking.
Steve, I mean, 2 players, couldn't have been a, more juxtaposition if they tried 6 weeks ago. Joe Linton, the butt of jokes, people scratching their head why the 40 million are being paid. A Scouse mate of mine rang me up the day and said, who is that centre midfielder you've got, Joe Linton? He's absolutely brilliant. And I was like, wow, it really just knocked me. And I know why he said it, because again, he had a good performance last night. ASM again, I mean, there's a lot of people overreacting to ASM because this is what ASM has done since he came to the club. he's the most exciting maverick that we've got at the club at the moment. And when he does things right and he's on his game, he's brilliant. And I'm always very careful these days not to go out onto social media and have a pop or give my opinion too early, only because you only ever get a chance unless you're sitting in an executive box to see the game or an incident in the game once when you're live. And it's usually at the opposite end of the pitch, you know, which you've got no chance of being able to give an accurate description of. So I have watched Match of the Day back, and ASM probably played better than I thought he did last night. So I'm glad I did that. But he's still so frustrating. He releases the ball at the wrong time. You know, he holds on to it too long. Maybe there's scope here for somebody who's a good coach, like how to get the best out of him. He's just going to have to find it how. And I think a lot of the shrugging and huffing and puffing only ever comes from those kind of players when they're not playing where they want to play.
You know what, Steve? The thing with it that annoys me and the thing that worries me is that the body language then starts to impact on his teammates, because the body language is a message to his teammates that he's getting frustrated with them as much as frustrated with himself. And you can see among the squad, and certainly in yesterday's game, the number of times where he was saying, I wanted that ball at my feet. But A, you've got your back to goal. A, you're 60 yards away from the opposition's penalty box. And C, you're surrounded by three players. And I've made the decision as a midfielder or as a fullback that I'm not going to play the ball to you there. So he then makes some representation to his teammate. And his teammate's response is, you know, well, I'll not repeat before the watershed what the response is. But you know what I mean? So these little things will start to impact the squad going forward. As the more frustrated he gets with himself, he's showing that frustration against his teammates, and then the teammates will start to resent him because he's not actually performing. He's not actually producing the goods. I mentioned earlier that he runs up into blind alleys. There's only so many step overs you can take. And I think opposition players have sussed him because they know that if they just stand, they can stand and watch him, and they can watch him do step overs, and they can watch him try and twist and turn because they know he's going to come back. As soon as you let him go one way, he's then going to drop the other way. So they're standing off and they're allowing, or they're facing right up to him, they're hitting him straight away. And you get the likes of a Sean Dyche, who got his team got the run around a couple of months ago. Well, 6 or 8 months ago, and where he actually destroyed them. And then they go up against them a couple of weeks ago, and he goes, just hit him and just annoy him, just upset him, just block his runs, etc., etc. And that's what he hasn't learned, and that's the frustrating part of him.
Yeah.
Joe Linton, on the other hand, and I'm going to sound critical here, but when you're coming from such a low base, we're actually making him out as he's suddenly turned into Ronaldo, you know, or Messi or somebody like that. He's nowhere near the finished article. He's nowhere near the player we're now building him up to be. But excuse me, I'm laughing and joking at the same time at the thought of it. But the base that he's come from, he's been so rubbish that he does even the minutiae of what needs to be done, and he's going to look like he's really, really grafting. Yes, he has put the effort in. Yes, he does look slightly faster and fitter, but he's frustrating like Shola Amiobi is frustrating, because you know at some point he's going to trip over those size 12s himself. He's not going to trip over them because somebody's in the way. He's going to trip over them because one size 12 is put in front of the other size 12 and the other one comes clattering up the back of it. That's what it looks like at times. It looks like like the ball is jelly and he cannot get it out. It's like being in that five-a-side pitch where you're playing with one of those furry footballs that sticks to your toe or sticks to the ground because the ground's a little bit wet or a little bit sweaty or whatever, you know, in terms of like the condensation inside at Eldon Square or something like that. And you're thinking to yourself, this ball's all over the place. It's stuck under, it's got no air in it or whatever, you know. That's what it looks like when he's playing. honestly, when I'm reading and seeing people going, he's the best. He's performed. Yeah, because the base that he's come from is so low, and I know that sounds critical, but it's the way I feel. I'll probably get a message from Stewie in a minute telling us, yeah, he agrees with us, either that or it's going to be the other way. And I'm going to get loads of messages telling us that I'm talking a load of rubbish. But that's what it comes over to me as, Steve. And I'm sorry that it comes over like that because I don't like criticising players. I don't like that. I think, the effort that the lads put in, yes, I should be, but I'm expecting an awful lot more. And it's still 40 million quid and it's still that sack of potatoes on his shoulders until we start seeing goals regularly and we start seeing him making moves and putting the ball in that gets those goals that we're looking for with his teammates. It doesn't look like he's gelled into a player that he's looking after himself, but I don't think he even knows where his teammates are at times either, so...
Fair enough. Good assessment. That's what it's all about. It's all about opinions, and I think, I think there's progress, but I can understand why you're saying that. That's the first hour done, lads. Wow, flies over this show. We are going to be doing something live next week, guys, and that is going to be really exciting because Mitch is coming over. COVID restrictions and getting through France being permitted. I think what we're going to do is we're going to get together in my office and just do it off the laptop and then go and have a couple of Christmas socials. I think that's the plan. We're going to sort out the day. It won't be next Friday, obviously, because next Friday, of course, is Christmas Eve. So we will be doing it when Mitch gets here. Once he lands, we'll plan it out. We'll probably only do an hour, I would have said, unless we can get through more than that. But we'll do something for next week. And don't forget Christmas week. I do like to have a week off. There's plenty of stuff premiered on the channel. Done a lot of events over the last few weeks and months and managed to record them. So you've got plenty of entertainment. We have done a couple of specials. I have done my dream team. Young Holly interviewed me and I finally done my dream team. Me and the lads from the retro team have done the European nights with regards to the retro games, which is fantastic. Holly and I have agreed we will do a live at some point over the festive period, either before or after the Man United game. So you will get one live show to listen to. So there will be plenty of stuff on. You'll have a show a day. It gives me an opportunity to have a week off. It gives the guys and everybody else a chance to have a week off. So, obviously we want you to enjoy your Christmas time as well, but it just means you can dip in and out of the stuff. And, we won't let you down. We still have 7 shows a week, so don't worry about that. Okay, on to the next section. The day I met, where we ask you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody who used to play for or manage Newcastle United. And 3 crackers this week. Keith Moore, thank you for this wonderful photo of KK in his managerial days at Newcastle United. And there he is in his KK Adidas tracksuit. Great photo, that. This one from Paparazzi, my wife Julie with Callum Wilson. Excellent. Very good. Having a coffee, I believe, but thank you for sending that in. Lovely photo. And this one from Toon Mad, Stewarty Mick, one of my favourite players, he says, Joey Barton. Absolutely fantastic. Keep them coming in. Send them to me, Steve, or Mitch on Twitter, and we will get you into the Hall of Fame. It's time for the Food Bank T-shirt, or should I say jumper. Christmas jumpers are all the rage at the moment, and I've just stuck that on my Twitter, at Steve Wraith, walking in a Keegan Wonderland. It's a one-off Christmas jumper, and to win that, you just need to bid. It's an auction, and we will be auctioning that off for the next 6 days. I'll do the draw on the 23rd of December. to bid, follow at Steve Wraith on Twitter and simply bid underneath. And the highest bid, when I announce it on the 23rd, will be the winner. And I'll put you in touch with the relevant people for you to pay for it. So that is your latest food bank effort. Big shout out, as always, to our sponsor, Spider VPN. For all your internet security, Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of the search list, and they are the boys to trust to protect your computer, whether it's your photographs, passwords, or whatever. Get a VPN today from Spider VPN. Thank you to skipsandbins.com as well. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Enquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thank you also to L&G Family Funeral Directors 01913897245 and to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. Thanks also to Arcot Interiors, top kitchen specialists found on Heaton Road. Just Google Arcot Interiors. All of their details come up, and I'm sure if you mention NUFC matters, they will try and do you a good turn on the price. Q-Tech Shop as well. qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the people who run our website. And if you want to get onto our website, get your phone over that, and that will take you straight to it. Put your camera on top of that, and a bit of technology takes you straight to it. You can buy a membership pack, become part of the cult, and essentially go into the monthly draw. But NUFCmatters.com, lots to be had on there, but that's a little bit of computer trickery which will help you. And Newcastle Legends logo is in the bottom right hand corner. Click that to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the thumb up to like the video, click share to your social media, and drop into the comments box to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans or to pose a question. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. Usually goes up within 24 hours of the show going live. We've got a couple of events coming up. Last chance really to get Christmas gifts in over the next 6 or 7 days. You can buy them online at Group on a Voucher. It's an afternoon with Peter Beardsley, Sunday the 30th of January. Get yourself onto Group on a Voucher, search that event out, and you can pay online and send somebody a gift. And we've got a couple of others coming up. An evening with Mick Mahoney on the 14th of January and an evening with Steve Watson on the 28th of January, both at the Irish Centre. Tickets for both events available at newcastlelegends.com. Just click shop, and don't forget the back page is selling books galore, including the Pavel Cernacek book and my book, Every Boy's Dream. Pop in, give Mick and the lads some support at the Metro Centre or St Andrews Street. Some great bargains in there. It's one of those places where you go in and you just wander around and generally could spend an absolute fortune. But it's Christmas. If you can get in there, you might see something that your lass or your auntie or your granny could buy you. Well worth popping in to mix two shops. You need to support. You've got to support your local business during these harsh times, because it looks not looking too bleak after Christmas. We're looking bleak after Christmas. We could be going back into some kind of lockdown. It certainly looks that way. Okay, last thing before we get into the competition that Q-Tech runs is the food bank, of course. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk. Match day bucket is operational 365 days of the year, but we ask on a match day, if you can't get to the match, just to make a virtual donation. It can be 20 pence, it could be 20 quid, it could be 200 quid, it could be more. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is the place to make your donation. Don't forget, me and Malcolm as well are at the Dog and Parrot pre-match on Sunday. We will be there from 12 midday, and we'll also be back on after the game at 4:30. So if you want to come along and meet Supermac and listen to what he has to say pre-match and post-match, then that is the place to do it. Dog and Parrot, just up from Central Station or across the road from the Centre for Life. That is the place to come and meet Supermac, Malcolm MacDonald, on Saturday, and it's free of charge, and kids are welcome. Right, okay, the Q-Tech competition. The clue last week was somersault, with that rather nighttime photograph of St James's Park from beneath the arch, just outside the Irish Club there. So the second clue is this: 1st of April, 1974.
Oh.
1st of April, 1974. So write your answers down to both of those, and we will have another clue in our show next week. and then one more the week after, and we will announce what the prize is in the next couple of weeks. But that should be interesting. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing it. Unfortunately, tonight we won't be seeing Toon Tipster. He's not well. He's on his sick bed, and he's hoping he's going to be okay for the match. So we won't have his dulcet tones joining us for the last half hour. We will be reviewing the match a little bit later, but as everybody knows, we always have our regular slot, which a lot of people enjoy, and that is Toon Lookalike. Some near the bone ones this week. I mean, and some just blatantly not lookalikes, but we'll look through them anyway. I've started with this one, which is from Arnold. He says Thomas Vermaelen and Jude Law.
Yeah,
very good. You could probably stick Andy Carroll on the end of there.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah,
looking as wistful as those two. But yeah, I like that one. Very good, very good. This falls into the category of last week, really, because Rachel had mentioned in the chat how much Joe actually looked like that local actor, Mark Benton. And I tell you what, that is doppelgangers. And they're both from roughly the same area as well, I think.
Aye.
That's right.
Maybe Joe's dad had a bike.
Well, I wonder whether Joe actually knows him or whether he's ever come across him, because there must be similar ages as well. Maybe I don't know. That's interesting.
We'll ask Lenny on Sunday.
We will. We did have Ben Jacobs on last week, and I did howl at this one when Andrew suggested that Ben Jacobs could actually be Jesus Christ Superstar. I can see it, I can see it, definitely. He could have given us a miracle last week down at bloody Leicester, that's for certain. How about this guy from Big Cook, Little Cook? He's a doppelganger for Ben Jacobs, says Dane Toon.
Wow. That is...
Same dress sense.
No. You're getting the look from you.
He's got a blue top on. Albert, oh dear, Albert.
Albert.
I haven't put many Alberts in this week. Albert, I just don't know what on earth you're on about. There is a remarkable resemblance between a chimpanzee and me. Only because you've superimposed me face onto a chimpanzee, man. For God's sake. Oh my God. And you keep doing videos and I can't use videos, so stick to photographs, Albert. But thanks for that anyway. Hungary at USA.com. Just wanted to know if that was me in the right black clothing getting splashed from passers-by. I mean, it's such a distant photograph. It could be. Well, it's not, but it could have been. I get that's what you are trying to do. But yeah, it's not me. It's definitely not me. This one from PJ. Whoever did this, I owe you several beers. This is genius work. Well played. That is
class. That is what superimposing a head or a face onto somebody is really about.
For those not too sure whose heads Andy Gray and Richard Keys have been put onto, it is of course Ghislaine Maxwell and the late
Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein, yes, exactly. So yeah, a perfect fit, one might say there. I would hasten to add that this isn't one that I really condone, Garfield, but I did. You've sent us it, so we will show it, and we'll let the public judge for itself. But there's our Matty, and there's the puppet. I'm not sure where you're coming from with that, other than that they've got ginger hair, mate, and I've got to be perfect. He probably looks more like the guy on the left. Yeah,
right.
He probably does. People will have noticed a distinct lack of Steve Hasty content, and it seems to have dipped off. And I'm not sure whether Steve's using like the old man in the shed techniques, where he's doing subliminal threats on videos to stop people sending these in. But thanks to Sam for restoring parity and sending this. More Steve Hasty face masks available since his haircut.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not having that. There you go.
Oh
Brilliant.
my God, that is brilliant. That is brilliant. And we don't plan this show either. That was class. This one from Albert is actually pretty good. But if you follow Albert on Twitter, Albert M709119962, God, he makes it difficult. That actually moves. It's a video. And I thought that was really good. And we've had the Quaker Man before.
Wow.
But I think the fact that it moves is quite good. So
well
done, Albert.
A warning.
Oh, you did, restored yourself here. Jacob, anyone know why Steve Wraith watched the game in the Cop end tonight? God, how man, my beard's not that grey, not yet. Anyway, I've got a few grey hairs coming through, but it's not that bad. But yeah, I can see that. I can see the likeness, mate. I can see the likeness. This one, it was a late shout from Murphy. He goes, and I'm sure this guy won't be too happy about this. David Warner getting compared to Jeffrey Epstein.
You know what? I couldn't care less.
Not after the way the cricket's going at the minute.
Going over in the Ashes, I couldn't care less what David Warner thinks.
Yeah, the cricket's not going too well at the moment. Garfield did put this one in as well. Toon lookalike, Toon tipster, and Professor Honeydew from the Muppets.
Poor Joe. He's not even very well, and you're still having a go at him.
He's not well. We're coming into the final furlong tonight, and the top four are as follows. Yeah, and that was sent in again from some kind of media outlet. Somebody sent it in, and they've screenshotted that from a media outlet. So yeah, I can imagine that the people of Scotland have probably had a field day with that one. Yeah. This one from Toon Barmy, Kurt Zuma and actress Leslie Jones.
Oh.
I tell you what, right? You look at it; it's the smile.
Yeah.
And the eyes are quite similar on that one. You can see why Toon Barmy 2's gone for that. There could be brother and sister. There could be. There's a distinct likeness there, mate. But I'll give you that one. I love this from Albert. Bielsa and Jack Duckworth.
No, this is getting closer.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the real context of what a lookalike is, Albert. So you've nailed it this week with that one. But you've come into second place, I'm afraid, because I had a much better winner, and it was this one. Now, who does that look like?
God, I'm trying to think what's coming next. Me.
I do to think what's coming next.
It's not you, lads. It's not you. Miguel Delaney, of course, from Toon Barmy 2.
Oh.
There, can you see it? You're looking at the face, lads. You're looking at the face.
Yes, yeah.
There you go. Belly. It's the no. It's not a beer belly. That's a baby. He was the first man to give birth. Not Miguel Delaney, that guy.
No, right, okay. You didn't give birth to Miguel.
I'm glad he clarified that, Steve. That was really the clarification.
Yeah, so there we go. That is my winner this week, Toon Barmy. Thanks for your submissions. Keep them coming in. Send them to me, send them to Mitch, send them to Steve Hasty. We always like to see the lookalikes, and we always get a laugh out of them. So please keep them coming in. Yeah, keep them coming in to me at Twitter, and of course to Steve and to Mitch. We always enjoy seeing those lookalikes, and there has been some rather bizarre ones this week, but also some rather good ones. We are now going to start looking ahead to the match at the weekend, and we say tentatively that it's going to go ahead, but we're not 100% sure. If it is or not. There seems to be a lot of discussions going on. It seems that Pep Guardiola, of course, now has COVID or has failed a lateral flow, probably needs to take a PCR now, but we're not 100% sure what is going on. Press conferences have gone ahead. We know that the game has been moved now from 2:15 to 2 o'clock because the match prior to that has now been called off. So Newcastle's game will kick off at the behest of Sky Sports. Who clearly dictate what goes on, full stop. We've got no say in this at all. Doesn't really make much of a difference anyway. 15 minutes, it's neither here nor there. There are a limited number of tickets available in home areas, so you will still be able to pick up a ticket if you want to go and see this match on Sunday. As for injuries, well, Paul Dummett, as we know, is still out, still injured. Fernandes remains out as well. We know he's going to miss most of the festive period. We still await news, of course, on the condition of the two players who were injured at Liverpool, Alan Saint-Maximin and Jamal Lewis. Hopefully, both of those will be fit and at least ready for selection. As for Manchester City, they arrive at St James's Park on the back of seven successive Premier League victories. And the most recent, a 7-0 win at Leeds United. 8 games away in the Premier League this season have brought 6 victories. The only blemish on their record is a 1-0 defeat at Spurs and a 2-2 draw at Liverpool. Referee, you almost dread this for Newcastle at the moment, is Martin Atkinson. This is the second time he has refereed one of our games. He, of course, refereed the West Ham game right back at the start of the season. VAR, which is constantly switched off for our games, is Craig Pawson. And as I've already mentioned, the game is live on Sky Sports. God knows who's going to be in the studio. Let's hope they perform better than Graham Souness did when he was on the other week. God, it's just a conspiracy. The whole lot's a conspiracy. No Toon Tipster this week, but we do have our old friend Toon Stato.
Hello, amigos. Fresh from the defeat yesterday at Anfield, we are still at 10 points after 17 games, and it doesn't get any easier on Sunday against reigning champions Manchester City. However, this is the stat that I would like to start with. Newcastle are unbeaten in their last 5 games at home against the reigning champions in the Premier League, so they can make it 6, and this will be the first time that they have such a record since 1996. Also, Newcastle has scored 7 goals against Man City in their last 3 home games, and we know that they won one, the famous win with Rafa, and then a 2-2 draw with Steve Bruce and the 3-4 defeat last season against this opposition. Man City, on the other hand, very dangerous opponent. I was checking for their record win in the Premier League. It's 8-0 against Watford, and their second biggest one was the 7-0 thrashing of Leeds last week. Eddie Howe doesn't have a great record, to put it mildly, against Man City. Played 10, lost 0-10, so he's looking for his first points against Man City. And Man City have scored against Newcastle in the last 25 games. If they score on Sunday, they will equal Arsenal's record for most games scoring against the same opposition. Arsenal has done it against West Bromwich Albion. Let's see what the game brings us on Sunday, lads.
Yes, let's see what the game brings us indeed. Again, this set of fixtures, we always knew it was going to be difficult. Leicester, Liverpool, Man City, Man United. Was never going to be a happy festive period for us. We're taking solace out of the fact that we only lost 3-1 last night and managed to get a goal down at Anfield. It's going to be interesting, Mitch, what happens at this weekend, because the game could be postponed. I think that would be the best outcome for everybody. This game suddenly gets postponed, it gets put back. We've spent some money. It's suddenly a different ball game when we have to play this game. But this game goes ahead. Man City's got their tails up, and Newcastle are still in a slump, as Toonstadt has already mentioned, 10 points. And if results start going against us, that can have an effect on the mental side of things as well, can't it?
It can. What I would just love to see we play like a team that's getting out to lose. If everybody's outside of our fan base, I'm quite sure everybody's expecting Man City to rock up and thump with. So why don't we just go and give it a damn good go? I want to see we're going down. If we're going to go down, might as well go down swinging. I mean, last night's performance, in some ways, was a performance like that because, as I said before, take that first goal out. When do Liverpool get the first goal? Do we frustrate them at half time and do we, manage to eke a point out of it? We've just got to keep the intensity and keep playing the way we are. Man City, on the day, as they showed against Leeds, and by God, I wish I'd been in Goodfellas the other night when Leeds got the thumping off Man City. I would have had a little smirk on my face in the corner of the bar, that's for sure. They were very good, but Leeds were also apparently very bad. I didn't see the game, but certainly Bielsa wasn't happy with his team at all. I just want to see we play with the same level of intensity and give the same goal. Losing Lewis is a blow because he looked like he was settling in really well and seemed to like the playing style and was making left back his own. And when a hamstring goes like that, it's usually a bad sign. That's probably a grade 2 at least. That's going to be 8 weeks plus, and that's not great. But also, coming into January, if the game was postponed and we've got a different pair of fullbacks, a different centre back, and somebody different pulling strings in midfield, then it's a totally different discussion. Barring Man City returning a raft of positive tests, so I can't see the game being called off. I think it's going to go ahead. Like you say, the kick-off time being moved in 15 minutes is really no biggie, but it really does just show who holds the power in terms of setting fixtures for football. It's all about television, as it has been since that letter I got back as interim chair of the trust in 2010 about the Plymouth game being moved at short notice. Nobody gives a monkeys. I saw Darren Curry talking about it on Twitter. Look, I've spent in excess of 500 quid on hotels and tickets for Southampton and one other game, and they could all be just called off at the last minute, and nobody thinks about the fans.
Of course.
At all. Never do. I know it's only 15 minutes, but the point's very, very valid, I think. With regards to the game itself, like I say, I just want to see we play with that intensity. Keep the mentality going. We genuinely have nothing to lose. This is a free hit. Nobody expects it to get anything out of the game. And they should be the games that teams in the bottom end of the table should use to say, right, just go out and give it a go. And let's see if we can make something happen. Let's get in their faces and make it difficult as we can. We know they can play 80% of the possession. We know they can play silky 14 pass moves that end up with a shot on target. We've seen it all before. They've got players in their squad that have genuine footballing gifts and can do anything on that day. So what have we got to lose? As long as our goal difference doesn't take too much of a battering, I think I'll be reasonably comfortable going forward. But I'd just love to see the right kind of intensity, show that they've tried to take some positives out of that Liverpool game. For all it felt like the dice they've been stacked against you and then some, and then move on to Man U and take it from there.
Steve, it's the end of a really difficult week. This, and it really, I think Mitch is right. It's a free hit, isn't it? It's it's a game which, in recent times, we've given a decent account of ourselves under the last three. Under the last couple of managers. Sorry, under Steve Bruce, under Rafa. Not the prettiest of displays, but we've managed to do something at home against City. So if you have a go at this, you just never know, do you?
That's right. I mean, and you say in the end of a difficult week, it's also the start of a difficult fortnight. Man City, Man United, and then Everton. Because, when you're on paper, you look at that and you're thinking, oh God, it's out the frying pan into the fire. Quite honestly, but the thing with Man City is, I watched City against Wolves last week, and they were playing against 10 men for a long stretch of the game. And quite honestly, I put it on Twitter, and I seriously meant it. This City, when their mind's not set, when they want to play tiki-taka football or whatever you call it, they could put a glass eye to sleep. When they're not clicking, when their attitude is, well, we're going to win this game anyway, and then you see Guardiola getting frustrated on the touchline, and you see the ball not quite running right for them. And then the following week, they can go in against Leeds and they get a 3-0 up after 20 minutes and they romp home 7-0. That's what City can do to you. That's the quality that they've got. Guardiola makes changes because he's unhappy about the way that played in a 1-0 home win against 10 men. He makes wholesale changes, and the attitude of the squad changes with it, and they go out and put a performance like that in. This is what you're up against when you're playing class players. When you drop a player of quality and you're bringing a player of quality in, or when you're making those changes because you can make them. Now, I heard Eddie Howe saying that he might have to start rotating, and I'm looking at who we're going to rotate. And the only rotation that we seem to be able to make would be on a spit roast. That's the only rotation that can happen that's going to get you anything in a barbecue. Because quite frankly, rotating players, we haven't, unless you're happy with rotating poor quality with poor quality, I cannot see that we could rotate some players to instill confidence in the squad or to bring a result out or stuff like that. It's just not happening with we. We tried it yesterday with dropping or resting, whatever the word you want to use, Callum Wilson and putting him on the bench. I don't think for one moment he wanted to bring Callum Wilson on at all yesterday, especially when you're 2-1 down. And you're looking at it and you're thinking, oh God, but I've got no one else on the bench that I can bring on. I was surprised he didn't bring Dwight Gale on, actually, because I think he was genuinely resting Callum Wilson for what's coming over the weekend. Plus, with the fact that we perhaps do have a chance with Wilson against Man City, up against the way that their defenders can play, because the fullbacks do tend to push on so much that we might be able to exploit some space. And we know that Callum Wilson had a booking, and he always does have a booking in him, and now one booking would take him out of the next game. But City are a quality team. There's no question of it. Probably playing the best football of anyone in that league, without a shadow of a doubt. Chelsea have slipped up of late. I think what Liverpool have is that Liverpool have a galvanising sort of team ethic. But there were stretches in that game yesterday that I thought, you know what, other than the fact that they're getting into you that much further up the pitch than we are doing to them, there was always the chance, if you had some quality, that you might have nabbed something at the other end. With City, it's a different ball game altogether, and you're going in and it's containment from the start. How's it going to play out? I don't know. I honestly don't know, Steve. I think we're going to go into this game thinking, and probably from a fan's perspective again, thinking that this is another free hit for us. And if it is, you never know. You never know what's coming. If Guardiola's not there, how will their squad feel? What will the attitude be? Who stands on the touchline? Because it's Guardiola or nobody, isn't it, when it comes to the advice and guidance that seems to get given out from their dugout. You don't see other members of Guardiola's team up there sending signals. It's Guardiola and only Guardiola. It'll be interesting if he's not available, and also whether, if he does possess a positive test, whether that impacts on the rest of the squad. I got a little message there from one of our friends who lives in Spain, and he said, my comment earlier about Guardiola going to Barcelona, and then picking up COVID and the contempt that it is. And he said, you know what, the way that Spain is at the moment, he was probably safer in Spain than he would have been if he'd stayed at home. And yeah, I accept that. He's probably right. And that's the way that's the way that football is at the moment. And you're probably right. But when we get into predictions, this is where it's going to be. It's going to be horses for courses, isn't it? And where we're heading. So,
yeah, no, it is. It is. I mean, look, let's get a prediction off you now, Steve. We'll come to Mitch. We know Mitch is going to do a prediction now, and he does his dice tomorrow. But give us your prediction now.
You know what? I always go into a game with a positive attitude. I always go there hoping for a win and expecting to win. I don't go there expecting to be shocked. And tomorrow, I think there's every possibility if you face up to them and you don't give them the space that they need, that you can get a result against City. You can get a point and possibly walk away with 3. And my heart's telling us that I can see another 2-1 coming from Newcastle against City. But my head's saying, you know what, they could romp 2 or 3 against Swain, and it could be 3-0. I predicted 3-0 for Newcastle a couple of weeks ago and got hammered with a 3-0 in the other direction. In fact, it was last weekend, wasn't it, against Leicester? But I can see, you know, if things go against where I can see City ripping us apart at least 3-0. But like I say, my heart is saying, look, you get it together, we're going to have a 2-1 win. So.
Okay, you're going for a 2-1 win. I'm going to go for 2-0, which is, you know, my conservative estimate. Newcastle are going to get beat, but I think it's going to be 2-0. I went for 3-1 last night, so we'll see whether I can get the double. I was miles off with Leicester. I thought we'd get something out of the Leicester game. Mitch, I know you're going to do the dice tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock.
Right.
With, Mick Lowes will be joining us again. Stu Penman, Al Reid, me and you. But what's your heart over head prediction?
Well, my head over heart prediction is 3-1 City. My heart over head prediction is 1 each. Right. With City having a man sent off.
Or 2.
Don't know where that come from. But yeah, I think realistically, City are going to win the game. Right. Realistically.
I agree. I can't see it going any other way. I think City will win that game.
I hate sitting on here and saying that. I hate going against our own side, but we've also got to be realistic. And realism says, play this game 100 times. City are going to win it far more often than not. We may get, if we can take our chances, because I think City do give chances, and people are not always great at taking them, and I think they've also got some very decent defenders who take up fantastic positions, and that's the big thing. It's their starting positions are always fantastic. But yeah, I mean, realistically, I think 3-1 City.
You know what it is, Mitch? There's always space to exploit when you play City because of the way that they play. And if you've got the players who can exploit that, and if you've got the players who can look up and play off each other and make the decisive pass at the right time, you can get something. That's the thing, you see. But that's very much a mindset as well, and very much how we line up. And if we can get into those positions where we can exploit that space that they give up, because they don't, you know, they literally do. They're so much an offensive team that sometimes from a defensive point of view, there are situations there that you can exploit. But it's whether you've got the players within your squad that can do that, and whether the mindset in them is to focus on doing it at the right time, you know, taking advantage at the right time. Because there will be opportunities during the game. There will be opportunities from set pieces, or there'll be opportunities from corners, or the opportunities to break. And it's whether or not, as a team, you're supporting each other to exploit those opportunities. It only takes one opportunity. Take your opportunity and then stay tight at the back, because they do have this situation where they just play the ball in front of you constantly, and then we saw Leicester do it quite effectively, where they play the ball and then that quick 1-2 that exploits the defense and gets around our midfield. But if you're tight and you're compact and you're working as a team, then you can nullify that. And we have seen teams do it against City, and it does frustrate them. And it frustrates their manager more than it sometimes frustrates their players, and it rubs off on sometimes with these substitutions and stuff like. So it's how the game pans out, and how the mindset of our players is on Sunday that'll make that, that'll give you that extra 1% that you can get. where you can get a result. And that's what I'm hoping, and that's what I'm praying for, that we can do that exploitation aspect of the game that'll take us to getting at least a point, because we don't want the gaps suddenly starting to appear over the Christmas period. And more importantly, we don't want to run out of fixtures where teams have got fixtures stacking up for them. And I know we could go back years and we could talk about the situation that Newcastle ended up in when we had our run-in with Man United, where we ended up playing 3 games in a week and stuff like that, and they just cruised through. It becomes that exhaustive. But if we're getting games ahead of other teams, but we're not picking up the points, that's the concerning part of me, where all of a sudden Burnley have got 2 or 3 games on us, and then that's potentially 9 points, but they're still only 3 points adrift from we, or we're only 3 points adrift from them, but they've got 3 games in hand. That's the worrying side of the game that this whole COVID thing's bringing in, and this whole new dimension that managers are now going to have to cope with, and squads and players.
Yeah, can we pick 3 goalkeepers on Sunday, says David. I did suggest that last night, I've got to be honest, about Liverpool.
I picked 2 last night, did you notice? Against Chelsea. Because of his fitness situation, Rafa actually put 2 goalkeepers on the bench. I don't know what he was going to do with them, or whether he just did it because the player gets appearance money or what. But I thought that was really strange to name 2 goalkeepers on the bench. Yeah,
it was strange. One of them must be able to play at centre half, I think. Brian Johnson says, question Steve Hasty. It's on the screen. He says, if it's called off, would you be happier than playing it?
No, I want to play the game. I want the game played. I want the game played, and this is kind of your heart and your head, isn't it? Do you want the game played to get City out of the way, or do you want the game played because it's a game and you want to be there and you want to watch it? And I just want the games to go ahead. I want to be focused, and I want to take the opportunities when they come. And I'm worried, Stick, that games just get delayed and delayed. And I know people are going to say, "Oh, well, we'll go out and come January, we might have a much stronger squad and this type of thing." But I just want to be there on Sunday, and I want to be cheering the team on, and I want to take sort of pride in the fact that this squad should be able to get a result if everything goes our way. I'm not. Let's please have it off, have the game cancelled or postponed to give us a chance further on, because it might not necessarily pan out that way anyway,
Yeah, exactly. What about you, Mitch? Same question to you, I guess. Just interested in your opinion.
Yeah, I'd rather play it. I'd rather play it. Get it done. If the squad are feeling a little bit aggrieved after last night, and if the squad have got a little bit of fire in their bellies, let's see them use it. Because you just don't know if it gets postponed. You don't know what the circumstances will be when that next game rolls around. And we've got to pick up, and we made a few signings, but if we picked up a few injuries, what 11 are we putting out? We can't control these things. The only thing you can control is the team you pick on the day and how you have them play. That's it. So we can all speculate about what might and might not happen. The reality is that the game's going to go ahead. And what's the circumstances now? And the circumstances now is we've got a squad who I would imagine are hurting a little bit. And so if that's something in terms of an energy we can use to have a pop at the champions, let's bring them to our place and have a go. And let's see a few hurt people in terms of their pride having a little pop, and who better than to have a pop at as the reigning champions and the so-called best team in the land.
Yeah, I would agree. Question from Tom on the screen, and he says, would you rest Callum Wilson again, Mitch, or would you play him on Sunday with him being one booking away from suspension?
As Steve said before, Man City gives space, and one thing Callum Wilson can do is exploit space. He's got to be in. Yeah. You've got to play players. You can't play them worrying whether they're going to pick a booking up and then going to miss the next game. If it happens, it happens, and we deal with it. Yes, it's a concern because we don't really have the squad depth in that position to have the luxury to say, "Oh well, such and such is there, so we'll be all right if he's out." We can't rely on that.
No.
Would you rather he scored the winner tomorrow and got suspended against Man United, or miss tomorrow and we'll lose the game, and then he gets chucked there against Man United and that doesn't go according to plan? I know what I would rather happen. I'd rather see him get a hat trick and a booking and say, right, there's an unexpected 3 points. Happy Christmas. Enjoy your day off. You know, that's what I'd rather see. Play your strongest side, and he's got something which you can exploit against Man City is space and pace.
Yeah. The other thing, Mitch, as well, is that you could rest him against Man City, and have all your eggs in that basket for Man United, and then he could pull up injured in training, not be available. Yeah. So then your whole plan goes out the window. So what you've done, and sacrificed him not being available for Man City, and then you've lost out. So that's I suppose this is why managers get well paid. This is why managers are watching players constantly, and they get to know their squad. And it's a case of an element of trust, because he's you know, if you were a manager, you would take Callum Wilson one side, and Callum will know that he's got a booking in him, and he knows that he's one place away from being suspended. But he's going to sit there and he's going to go, well, you know, I've got to play the game correctly. For my team, I've got to go out and I've got to put 100% in. I can't have that worry of a booking that people are then going to criticise for. So you're going to make him aware that he's one booking away from a suspension, but at the same time, you want him to play his natural game. And his natural game involves getting into a tussle with somebody, and then he gets booked for it. That's football. That's, you know, you sort that out for the next game, and you have someone who comes in that replaces him, and the squad understand what happened, and it's just unfortunate. But if you don't play him against City, and then he pulls up with a hamstring injury in training, and then he's not available for Man United, and he's not available for Everton, and he's not available for Southampton and Watford, you know, that's more than unfortunate. It's that, and it's more than bad luck. It's you didn't take the opportunity when he was fit to play him, you know. So he has to play. Yeah. That's why I was disappointed he didn't play, and it's kind of sacrificed it, because there was, when we went 1-0 up, my first thought was, right, get Callum Wilson on. and I know that seems ridiculous because the goal came so early, but my first thought was, well, 1-0 up now, get Callum Wilson on, because he can hold the ball up front, because there's nobody else up front that can hold it. I would have sacrificed ASM and I would have brought Callum Wilson on. Maybe he's carrying a little bit of a knock, maybe whatever, and I don't know. But for me, he's got to be there on the team sheet on Sunday. He's got to be in the first 11.
Yeah, same for me. You got to play your best players, and you know you want to see him on the pitch, leading the line, and as Mitch says, scoring goals. That's what he's paid to do. Any news from your perspective, lads? I mean, you know, we've all got different contacts, and we don't like to post false hope or give false narratives. But Dwight Gale, he's not getting a look in. He's got to be on his way out. Are you hearing anything, lads, on the grapevine?
Be honest, no, nothing at all. Not hearing anything. Just little snippets in the newspapers, and the same as everybody else is reading, where there's supposed to be one or two clubs interested in him. But this has been going on for nigh on 2 seasons now, hasn't it, as far as Dwight Gale's concerned? But no, I've not heard any whispers at all. Nothing from any of the contacts that we have that would give an indication that he's on his way out, but nothing to say that he's staying either.
Okay, what about you, Mitch?
Yeah, same as Steve. I mean, we had a weekly touch base with Stu through the week, and that's one name that's interestingly conspicuous by its absence in every discussion at the moment. It's almost like he's not there, and there's always speculation about him. I still think there's a club in the Championship would look to take him on. But when you look at the data and the figures for clubs in the Championship, who can take his wages on? That's the big thing. No doubt we'll be left subsidising and paying some of it, or we'll pay it off as he's transferred. Either or. Yeah. But I think it's clear he's here to pick his paycheck up. That seems to be very clear. We know he's certainly been, at one stage he was one of the moles in the dressing room, allegedly, leaking left, right and centre. It's so yeah, I mean his time does seem to be done, but I hear absolutely nothing concrete about what's happening with it.
In terms of what you said there about having to pay part of his salary, you know what? It's a small price to pay if it's freeing up some space on the because everything's so tight. We've got 4 goalkeepers there, remember? So that was one space that got taken up, one too many. We've got there's his position. There's probably 1 or 2 others in the squad that you could say, if you know, that are not necessarily safe, not getting a run around, not getting a run in or a look in any way, shape or form. There's this conversation that's going on about Matty Longstaff and coming back. You know, he's on that loan in Aberdeen, and whether or not there's going to be space for him coming back into the squad, or whether he would slot straight back into the under-23s and would cancel his loan spell. And then there has to be space freed up for any new signings that are coming in. And it's a difficult time to buy players, but it's also a difficult time to offload players, unless there are those are players like Gale that would be desperately needed by, and there's 2 clubs there whose names propped up in terms of Stoke City and Middlesbrough. You know, 2 teams that are now in a position to move forward again in the Championship to get into the playoff spot. So, but other players in our squad, are there other players that clubs would look at and go, he's just the sort of player I need to get us into a playoff position? And I wonder whether that's the case in that scenario. But certainly there's got to be players that are either going to fall out and they're still going to be paying their salary and not getting a look in because they're not named in the squad, or they're going to be bailed out to other clubs and sold or go out on loan to free up those spaces. And I think goalkeeping one is one of the 4. We're certain will be gone in January to free up at least that one space.
Steve, I've just been noticing at the back there, you've actually gone all festive on it. I mean, I'm sitting here with a backdrop. Mitch is sitting there on his back.
I've got me little hat as well. You know that already. I'm G'd up for it, man. There's my card. I've got obviously. I think I should explain to people that I have a sponsor. You know, so this is Q-Tech. They've lashed out the money. Getting us a set of little fairy lights, which is very good. Thanks, John, for that. So I've got my fairy lights, I've got my star, I've got my Christmas stocking ready. You know, there's going to be loads of presents coming into that one, isn't there? And then I've got my card. I had a glance at there. You probably not believe this, but that's actually from two good friends of mine up at St James's Park. Amanda and her husband, Mia, Dad. I don't know whether you know them at all, but they sent us the card, which was very nice of them. So there's the card up there for you, Steve. I notice you're not showing your cards. Did they not send you one either?
I don't believe in cards.
Do you not? All right. Well enough.
I told them not to send this one.
You're probably not going to believe that that's who the card's from either, are you?
Notice I didn't. Now, Steve, notice I didn't doubt you there.
You didn't, you know, and you never do, Steve. You never do.
Great stuff. Good job. We've got a bit of good job. We've got a sense of humour. Julie has posted a message, and it's a weird message. It's I'm ready, Rachel. She says, and she's put 3 little cats. I wonder what that could be. Troll of the week, Julie. I hadn't forgotten. And as always, I stick a tweet up, usually, which is aimed at me. And I've gone back to basics this week. from Will Johnson, who identified himself as a Sunderland fan after this tweet. Thanks, Will. Much appreciated, mate. Really enjoyed the constructive tweet and the subsequent admission that you're a Sunderland fan. Thanks, mate. You're blocked.
Yeah, we
Jeff
never doubted
says,
he was a Sunderland fan, did we?
no, definitely not. He was proud of it as well. Jeff says Steve got a card off the Robins.
That's right. Aye, well spotted.
Great stuff. I'm looking at the diary, lads, for next week. Should we do the Thursday? Is that going to fit? As long as you get here, Mitch. Thursday the 23rd. Should we do a Thursday?
Aye, I don't think I've got a plan on that.
Yeah.
And do you want to do it like in the afternoon and then go for something to eat? So should we maybe do 11 in the morning and then go for something to eat on the 23rd?
Aye, suits me.
Right, okay. 11 o'clock, folks. Those of you who watch the Three Amigos on a regular basis, we will go live from NUFC Matters Central in Newcastle, and then we'll go for some Scran, but we won't be taking you for the Scran bit. We'll probably just do an hour next week. We might extend it. We'll see. And we'll all be together, which will be a first for this actual show. I'm looking forward to that. Mitch, have a safe trip over, mate. Looking forward to seeing you in the flesh, and looking forward to sharing a beer with you and some food. And
Absolutely.
Steve, hopefully bump into you on Saturday. Thanks, as always. I keep saying it to everybody who tunes in. Almost 500 again watching at any one time live earlier on. Thank you to everybody in the chat as well who essentially does the astounding job. Rachel, John, Dave, Julie. The admin, great to have you in there, and just keep an eye on the chat for us as well. But have a great weekend.
I'd just say a big thanks as well, Steve, to everybody who comes over to the food bank and meets us and greets us and shakes our hand and donates to the food bank and has done throughout the year. It's quite humbling, and it's rewarding and humbling at the same time to be part of a great group of people who really, really put the effort in. And also, I'd like a big thanks or big congratulations to my nephew's team yesterday, who played in a cup semi-final, under 16s cup semi-final. They're through to the final. They won 7-0. Their school team, they beat Benfield 7-0. So they're through to the final in which we played in March 2022. I found out that it's actually the final of the 2019 Cup, believe it or not, because the football season and the football calendar has been decimated so much in schoolboy football that this cup final that will be played in 2022 would have been the cup final that would have played in the 2019-2020 season. So that's how it are. So, hey, they might have been under 14s then, and they're now under 16s, but they're in the under 14 cup final at 16-year-olds. So well done, lads.
Well done, lads. Fantastic. Big shout out to John Curry. I'm not going to go into the detailed message he sent us, but thanks for that, mate. It did mean a lot. And, I'm glad you're okay as well. It was great to meet you down at Leicester. Jeff is offering the free talk in aid of the food bank. Jeff, contact Steve Hasty with any ideas or any details. Matty Longstaff's loan period is up as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about tomorrow morning on the show with Mick Lowes and the lads. And we can also talk about Mr. Hammond coming in, which we haven't touched on tonight. So we'll touch on that tomorrow morning, which should be good. But yeah, have a good weekend, lads. Steve, hopefully see you Saturday. Mitch, see you tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock with Mick Lowes and the lads. Take care.
See you, everyone. Cheers.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's